Hey everyone, it's Jonathan. Welcome to another Good Bad podcast. In this case, the conversation was good, but the movie wasn't, unfortunately. I've been looking forward to this one for so long. Cinderfella is a gender-swapped version of the Cinderella story with Jerry Lewis as Cinderfella and Ed Wynn as the fairy godfather. I love cheesy old Disney comedies, and even though this wasn't made by Disney, I thought this would be in the same vein. It had some old Disney regulars, mainly Ed Wynn. I love that guy, and I thought this had all the makings of an instant classic based on him alone. Spoiler alert, I was profoundly disappointed. I asked Lisa Faye to join me for this one because I think it had come up around the time we did the podcast series on Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, so we've been planning this for a while. I was planning a whole Cinderella series at that time, and Lisa mentioned having watched this as a kid, so I thought she'd be the perfect guest. Then the Cinderella series kind of got delayed after the Rodgers and Hammerstein's episode, and we ended up doing some other podcasts instead. We talked about some movies that were so bad they somehow became good again, like hilariously bad movies, but so entertaining at the same time. And I wasn't expecting this one to be in the bad movie ranks at all, but at the very least you'd hope that something like this could be the so bad it's good kind of bad, instead of the so bad it's terrible kind of bad. And if you can't already tell, this movie was not what I thought it was, so I told Lisa I'd include a trigger warning. If you are a fan of Cinderfella and clicked on this episode looking for a fun discussion about your favorite Jerry Lewis movie, this is not it. Turn around now before it's too late. We are not kind to this movie at all. Despite me assuming this was a childhood favorite for Lisa, it turns out she'd forgotten what was actually in this movie, and both of us came to this podcast ready to go. So in that respect, I'm actually really glad I finally watched Cinderfella because we had so much fun tearing it apart. I will now proceed to never watch it again.
I was like, I'm starting to wonder. I thought, does Jonathan secretly hate me? And he's giving me terrible movies to watch. But in your defense, all the terrible movies we've watched have been fun, even though they're terrible. This was not fun.
Okay, did you say you had grown up with this movie?
I watched it as a kid, but can I just say real quick that growing up, when I did, I was born in the 70s, so my kid years were like the late 70s, 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Before cable really took off, you only had so many channels and you watched whatever your parents wanted to watch, right? And so as a kid growing up, we would watch these movies, but in our family, we were more Don Knotts people when it came to this style of, comedy,
Mm-hmm.
like in the late 50s, early 60s, those movies. But we did watch a handful of Jerry Lewis movies. We weren't really big Jerry Lewis fans, but we did watch, this one and The Absent-Minded Professor. Like we watched those. Fine. I didn't really remember it. And so I was anxious to see, like, oh yeah, I remember this from watching it when I was a kid. Terrible.
I, for whatever reason, I thought this was going to be an amazing hidden gem. I had never seen this. I'm actually not even sure I've ever seen a Jerry Lewis movie. I guess
No.
I was watching, I was like, have I ever seen this guy? He's giving me like Jim Carrey vibes.
Yes.
And then I was
Yes.
thinking, like, did Jim Carrey like model his behavior after him?
But Jim Carrey has charisma. There, I said it. Jerry Lewis does nothing for me. I'm sorry. And I grew up watching the Labor Day telethon. Like it was a whole thing in our house. We did actually watch that every year, and it was a whole thing. And I feel bad because but yeah,
With Jim
terrible.
Carrey, I like some things that he does, and other times he gets on my nerves. And I was
Yeah.
watching this and I was like, this is giving me Jim Carrey vibes, but not in a good way.
It's funny you say that because I feel the same way about Will Ferrell. I know people love him.
Oh, I feel the same way.
His
Like, in
comedy,
some I like him, and most I don't.
I love him in Elf and bits and pieces in Old School, but for the most part, he drives me banana pants. So I'm
I
like,
kind of feel the same way.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I was watching this. I thought, for whatever reason, I was going into this with like, because like I grew up with a lot of like old Disney movies.
yes,
Because like I was born in the 80s, but I grew up with a lot of things from the years before me because my uncle would put VHSs in the VCR at night because he had cable, we didn't, and he'd just tape Disney Channel and I'd get whatever
right,
played overnight, and it was all old movies, like old Disney movies. I
yeah,
expected that this was going to be like those.
yeah,
And I suppose maybe it could be, depending on who you're. who you were, because like the ones that I grew up with, I love, and I was watching this thinking maybe if somebody grew up with this, they would love it. And I was also thinking, but I think Lisa said she grew up with this, and she's gonna hate me that I don't like
No,
this.
I want to say we watched it maybe twice, and I was like, I remember parts of it, like some parts of it were familiar, but I was like, we'll get to it, obviously, but there were parts where I was actively like mouth open, like, I cannot believe they just said that. Like, this
Yeah.
is terrible. And it, like I said, even the bad ones are fun. This was not fun. This, to me, in a general sense, felt like extraordinarily way too long comedy
Oh, yes.
sketches
And it was only
stitched
like, it wasn't
together.
even an hour and a half long, but it felt like it
No,
was 3 hours long.
yeah, stitched together to make some that barely had any tie-in, and that was it. They just felt like extraordinarily long, barely funny comedy sketches that they were just like, let's just tie them in together with some sort of storyline. I don't know, Cinderella for role reversal. That sounds great, and it was
That does
terrible.
sound great. That's what I thought this was. Because I love a
Yeah,
good gender swap. Like
yeah,
if you do it right, I think it can be such a creative and clever
yeah.
twist on a story. And I thought that's what this was.
This was not it. This did not hold up at all. And I don't really remember like enough about it when where I was like, oh my gosh, I remember loving this as a kid. I just remember, when you're young and you see people like adults doing goofy stuff, you're like, oh, that's funny. But I laughed one time in the whole movie. Yeah,
I think I probably same for me. I was for the most part I was bored watching
absolutely.
this.
I fast forwarded a lot of scenes where he was just walking to various parts of the house and climbing, like doing things that were just so, I would just fast forward because I'm like, he's going from one end of the hall to the other and it's going to take 12 minutes because he's going to
And it felt
bob and
like it was
weave
taking
over
12
everything.
minutes. I for usually when I do podcasts, I try to watch movies at least twice, and I did for this one. And I feel like there are other movies that I should have watched twice that I didn't. And I was like, why did I do this one twice?
Jonathan, it took me 2 days to watch this. I had to stop. I was like, no, I can't keep going. I can't. I was like, and then I finished it this morning, actually. I was like, okay, I have to kill the last 30 minutes.
The first time I watched it, I did it. I put it on while I was doing something else because I was like, I'll watch it. This will be one that I'll watch twice because I have a week because I started at the beginning of the week. The first time I watched it, it took me 2 days
Yeah.
because I was doing other things and like it was not engaging at all.
No,
And I watched it again this morning so I could like fully make all my notes and like write down the specific quotes that I wanted to make sure I remembered. And then I was like, this is not worth two viewings. Why am I
no,
doing this?
no. And I'm going to tell you that in all the times that we've done this, I've never really taken notes just because I'm like, these are fun and they're engaging. And I generally remember, like,
Hmm.
because it's just fun to have an organic conversation with somebody about a film you enjoyed, whether it's, traditionally good or bad. But this one, I was like, oh, I got to write this down. And I was like, I need to write this down. And I have like 2 pages, not big pages, but like, yeah, 2 pages of notes because I'm like, what the hell?
Part of the reason that I wanted to watch it twice too was because the first time I watched it, because I was doing other things, I felt like I was missing chunks of the story. Because something would happen, and I would be like, did I look away for too long and I missed
No,
something? And
but
then
you didn't.
when I watched it this morning again, I was like, no, they just skipped over something that seemingly should have been very important. And
Yep.
we're just on to the next thing with no
Yep.
explanation.
You missed nothing, my friend. You missed nothing.
And
Yeah.
I was thinking, did I get like a bad copy? So I went and watched it in a different place. Like I found the scene that I thought like there should be a scene here, and I found it like on a different streaming service. I was like, okay, I missed nothing.
No,
This is odd. The way they put this movie together is just bad.
it literally could have been a 35-minute like TV show, like episode. It could have been like
That's what
45
I
minutes
thought.
tops.
I was like, they have put so much stuff in this movie that it could have been whittled down to at least 45 minutes, if not shorter. There was
Yeah.
so much stuff that made absolutely no bearing on the plot.
Yeah. I want to say in 2 words, it was bizarre
Yes.
and boring.
Yes. And those two words don't feel like they should go together, but they do for
They
this?
do. I'm like, I would rather watch Snow White again. That Christmas Snow White movie that we watched, that was terrible because that was at least
Yeah.
entertaining.
Yeah, that one was entertaining. And this one, aside from a couple things that I enjoyed, which weren't even plot related at all, I don't think I'll ever watch this again.
I
Twice was
wonder
too
if
many.
I wonder if we have the same thing because I wrote down like I had a page, right? And I had my notes because I was like, I need to write this down. And then on the flip side, I wrote down funny scenes, things I actually found funny. I have one thing written down. One.
We'll see if it's the
Yeah,
same one.
we'll see.
Because there was one thing, like I'm really trying hard to remember things that made me laugh. There's one thing that is coming to mind, and only one.
Yep, I'm with you. So, like I said, I feel halfway through it, I was like, did I actually watch this as a kid? But I know I did because we had it. Like my dad was the same as you said, your uncle is that he would just record,
Hmm.
you could get a tapes, like VHS tapes in packs of
Yeah.
three. And then he would increase the speed and get three movies to a tape and he would just record whatever. I mean, it didn't matter if it had commercials or not.
Yeah.
TBS, we had HBO for a little while, so he would record movies and we would just have this little like, black market library like in our own house. Like that no one else knew that we just had all these like at
Yeah.
one point I remember as a kid just thinking like it was normal and then I'd go to other people's homes and they didn't have. I was like, y'all don't record movies, and they're like, what? And I'm like, oh, am I not, maybe I shouldn't say that. And we had like a little folder and that each tape was numbered and each one had the time stamp for when the next one
Oh,
started.
that would have been smart. I did not have that. I just had to
And we
try and
and I
find something.
yeah, and we had them in and like on the label we wrote on it, and then we had a folder. So if you wanted something, you went and looked in the folder to see which tape it was. Because at one point we had probably, I don't know, like 200 or 300 of those tapes with three movies each on them, and we just had them in a little like bookshelf, like in the living room, and it was just like, oh yeah, we got a bunch of stuff in here. Hello, illegal, but we were the only ones that watched it. We never like did anything with it other than be like, let's watch that one again. Yeah. So so I know we had it, but I really didn't remember anything about this movie as I was watching it.
Well, I guess that's good because I was afraid that I was going to be offending you by how much I wanted to trash
No,
this.
no. I also wonder if I mixed it up in my mind with the absent-minded professor because some of the scenes I thought I remembered they weren't in this movie, and I'm like, maybe that was the other because like I said, we only watched a handful of we didn't watch him a lot. We only watched like two or three of his movies. And so I was like, maybe I was thinking of something else. I have no idea. Either way, I don't need to ever watch this again. So
Yeah, I probably won't either. I had
yeah.
told my cousin about it because I thought that, but like she likes old movies, and we were looking to get together one day, and I was like, "Oh, I've got this movie I've got to watch," and she was like, "Nah, it doesn't sound that good." And now I'm glad she didn't watch it because she would not have liked it.
Right? Be like, don't ever recommend this. If you tell me you love it, then I know as in general, like that we probably won't be friends.
If somebody told me they loved it, I feel like the only explanation is that they watched this as a kid and it's something that just got stuck in their brain and now they
It's
have
like,
no
yeah.
explanation for
It's like
why
a
they
core
liked it. They
memory
just
that they
do.
can't get rid of. Yeah. Otherwise, I'll be like, I don't trust your judgment in anything.
If you watch this now as a modern day adult and you like this, I don't
Yeah.
understand you.
Then yeah. Then I have questions. So, anyways, there it is. That's my general overview. Hated it, but I'm glad to talk about it with you.
Yeah, that I feel like like my notes aren't that long, but there's so much stuff in this that I feel like I want to talk about
Yes.
because like everything about this feels like a good idea. Like I should like this movie. It's a Cinderella story, gender swapped, set in 1960s America. Like it feels like a good creative setting for a twist up, mashed up Cinderella story. Like I love this idea.
Right.
And they don't nail it at all. Like
No.
when I first heard about this, I heard Ed Wynn as the fairy godfather. And I was like, yes, that sounds
Right?
amazing. I love Ed Wynn. This sounds like such a great idea. I hated his character so much.
Terrible. Terrible. He's the one I started angry scribbling about. And half my notes are just angry, like scribbling, but we'll get there.
Yeah, when like I know what you're talking about, and I was watching this, I was like, this is Lisa likes this movie, because I was going
No.
through this one thinking you like this movie. I was like, this has to be a childhood thing. Like she must
Yeah.
have watched it as a kid, and now it's something that she can't explain.
I
So
just
I'm glad to
I
know that you actually didn't like it.
I feel like I probably was just like as a kid, like, oh, it's so funny because, he's very, physical with his comedy and
Uh-huh.
all the faces he makes. And I probably, when we talked about it before, I was probably like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I'll watch it because I remember loving it or something, but it does not hold up.
No.
And whatever feelings I had for it before, I'm out. I was wrong. I'm
I
declaring it now.
I feel like even if I had watched this as a kid, I don't think I would like it now, because like some of those, like for some people, weird things hold up for them and them alone. But I
Yeah.
feel like that doesn't always hold true for me. Like there's a lot of weird old movies that I like, but like one of my favorite movies when I was a kid was The $1,000,000 Duck, and I watched that in the last few years, and I borderline hated it. I was like, what on earth was child me thinking? This guy
Yeah.
is awful.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of movies I watched in the 80s as a kid that I just thought were just phenomenal. And then I go back and watch them and I still very much enjoy them. But I'm also like, what? Because like all case in point, Splash. As a kid, I was obsessed. I watched Splash all the time. I was like, I am a mermaid secretly, just nobody has unlocked it yet, and I will reveal myself eventually. And now as an adult, when I watch it, I still love it, but I'm just like, this is bonkers. What was I obsessed with? And then like Mannequin and like all those movies of that like little genre, they're terrible and got awful messaging in them. But yeah, I will watch them still to this day. I'm like, oh yeah, let's watch it. I even have a Splash poster in my basement.
I remember
Yeah.
watching Splash one time on TV when I was a kid, and I remember liking it, but not
Yeah.
ever feeling like I needed to watch it again. I've been curious, like, as it was so long ago, I don't remember much of it.
Yeah.
I felt like once I get to The Little Mermaid, like going through the Disney movies in order, once I get to Little Mermaid, I'll do the Splash at the same time and do them together and see what I maybe am missing, but maybe not am missing. I don't know.
Oh, please bring me on to talk about Splash.
Sure,
It was
definitely.
such an integral part of my child. It was the first movie that I was like so obsessed with that I had a copy and watched it like if not every day, every other day. And it was like anybody that asked me what my favorite movie, I was like Splash, Splash. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just had to throw that out there. My little pitch for letting me talk about Splash.
Yeah, no, that's one that I remember like very briefly thinking it was amazing, but never watching it again. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those tricky ones, like all the John Hughes movies in the 80s. They're tricky now. When you watch them again, you're like, oh, hey, that's terrible. But I'll still watch them because they're part of my childhood. This
Uh-huh.
I'll never watch again. This is not part of my childhood. I'm out. Like this
Yeah.
is terrible. And if anybody listening loves this movie, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I'll try and like put a warning at the beginning so
Yeah.
that if anyone is like truly loves this movie, they'll have dipped by now.
Yeah. Be like, this is your warning because I'm gonna get into it in detail. So I'm sorry in advance that I didn't like it.
Yeah, within the first 5 minutes, I was already getting odd vibes from it. Like even in the first, like the first, like it opens with the opening narration of the father leaving all his worldly goods to his wife with the caveat that she takes care of his son Fella, and then you have her yelling to wake him up, and then he's like wakes with a start, makes a goofy face, and I was like, eh, that's
Yeah,
odd. But then I was like, well, it's Jerry Lewis, and not that I've seen much Jerry Lewis, but I know he makes faces, so that must just be his thing.
yes, that's what he's known for, his little rubber face. Yes.
But then it just kept going downhill because he's like making breakfast and being a goof while he's making breakfast. And then the stepmother goes to wake up her sons, and it's like giving creepy horror movie mother vibes with them, like talking about her dear sweet boys and like treating them
And
like
they're
children, even
50
they're like, yes, exactly. They
and
look
they're
like
like
they're in their 40s or 50s, and she's treating them like they're children. Like, this is weird and bizarre and not in a good way.
And they're both in king size beds in one room, and she goes in there, and at first when it opens up and there it's shot where it's just looking at the mom and the two sons, like you're led to believe they're in some sort of law office, but they we only see them, we only see their point of view, like watching them react, and they're like, yay, we get all the money. And they, I'm like, okay, they're stepsons, okay, or they're her sons. I'm like, okay. But then yes, the next one is her waking them up, and I'm like, oh, they live there. Oh, they're in king size beds sharing a room. Oh my gosh, they're 50. I'm like, what is happening? And he's there's fella, and I'm like, his name is Fella. Okay, whatever. I just it never, I don't remember that part of it. And I'm like, okay. So then, he's in the kitchen, he's in the sink with his shoes on, he's shaking oranges out that come out perfectly sliced. It's all just corny,
Hmm.
super corny. And already I was like you, I was like, oh, this can only get worse.
Like, at this point, I was trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, and for to its credit, this had some things that I did like, but mostly in like cinematography inside the house. Like,
Yes.
outside the house, it felt kind of like the Disney comedies that I grew up with from that era. But inside the house, and maybe it's just because of the grand nature of the building, it looked great. Like
Yes.
the long hallways and tall staircases, and it tricked me into thinking this was a better movie than it was.
I think you're right. And there's a point later, which is not really that important, but when, it's revealed, that he's, Cinderfella, and they're like, wouldn't you want to live in a castle? And I'm like,
He
he
already
lives in
does.
a giant
I thought the same
mansion
thing.
now. And I'm like, what do you mean a castle? Like, he lives in a giant mansion now, which technically is his. Like, I know that it was given to the stepmom, like in the will, but I'm like, that's his house. He grew up there. Like, he grew up
Hmm.
in that. It made no sense. But
No.
yeah, so I agree with you. I thought the set was gorgeous. I love the coloring of the movie, actually, that very, 60s Disney look.
Hmm.
And yes, but the outside, sets obviously, and the way they shot certain characters like Edwin specifically, I'm like, why is he being spliced in places? Like, what there was parts that were just very odd, but overall, yes, I thought it looked gorgeous, really.
Hmm. The one thing in this scene that, like, it should have been a warning of how dumb the movie was, but like the dumbwaiter scene,
Yeah.
he puts the stuff in the dumbwaiter and then he runs upstairs. Like, he runs up a long stairway, and then he gets upstairs and then he leans over the edge of the dumbwaiter and picks up the tray. And I'm like, you're so much higher. Did nobody think this through?
Right.
This is like, I shouldn't be nitpicking this. This is basically a live action cartoon, but this is ridiculous.
That's what a dumbwaiter does. It's you pull it and it brings it up so you don't have to reach down, like but I guess it was just to lend to the fact that they called him dumb all the time, like he was dumb.
Yeah, but they made the point of like showing him leaning back down into the kitchen
Right.
from upstairs after he had just run up this long winding grand staircase.
Yes.
Like, unless he stretched out his entire body like Mr. Fantastic in the Fantastic Four, this is impossible.
Right. Yeah. And I think he had a heart attack filming this movie
I
because of all
read
this,
that.
of all the stair running.
Yeah, which is crazy that he had sacrificed his health for this movie.
Very true. Because I kept wondering. I'm like, which, because he runs a lot and he does a lot of stairs, and in the end, it doesn't matter. But I'm like, yeah, this man had a heart attack filming this.
Yeah,
Hmm.
this is also a musical, which it doesn't
It,
feel like it should be, but it is. The when he first meets his fairy godfather, they sing a song about the difference between a person and a people. And I'm like, this is a weird mindset.
bizarre. I'm just gonna keep saying it every time because it's bizarre. It didn't need to be a musical at all.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a good one.
No.
None of the songs are at all memorable. Like not, even with not very great musicals, sometimes at least one of the songs will get stuck in my head for a little bit. I don't remember any of the songs. The only reason that I remember it's a musical is because I wrote down when there was a song that I felt was worth noting. And this song where they're talking about the difference between a person and a people was just bizarre. And I felt
Yes.
like we should mention it because that is the mindset of this movie, that there is a difference between being a person and being people.
Right.
And I think people is just normal people, and being a person is like making a name for yourself, and that's what people should strive to be. Like they should want to become a person. It is a weird mindset. Like if this movie has a moral, is that the moral? I don't know. It's just there's so many bizarre messages in this movie.
Yeah, I took it as basically the same way you did, as, a person is someone famous or, special, and people are just the regular people. And between that and the we hate women, and they shouldn't dream for anything. Yeah, the messaging in this was awful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bizarre. And then that night, the family comes back and they're talking about that lunatic. And then he comes crashing in. He's having trouble with the doors. And I think this is the point where the movie started to fully lose me. And watching it a second time, I was like, you know what? They're calling him that lunatic. And even though they're not that much better than him, he is a lunatic. And I don't know why they're putting up with him. He is
Yeah.
driving me insane.
Yes. Doing like taking 12 minutes to do anything. And I get it
Yes.
was supposed to be funny, but it just wasn't funny. It was too every single time one of those scenes happened, it was entirely too long.
Yes.
You chop it down to like one or two times with the door, or, once trying to squeeze between his stepbrother and the table and
Hmm.
being like, oh, excuse me. But all of it was just entirely too long.
There were so many times in this movie where I remembered like there's a principle in filmmaking called the rule of three, especially in comedy, where things happen three times and they're funny, but if they keep happening, they stop being funny.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't know when the rule of three was invented, if it was before or after this movie, if they were going for rule of three, because there was a couple of scenes where it was like if you think about maybe there was three, but like it within each third thing that happened, there would be like five other things happening. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, this goes so far beyond the rule of three that it is not only not funny, it is painful, and I don't like this at all.
That's an excellent word, painful, because some of these scenes were painful to watch. And the one and only time I laughed was at the end of this scene when, okay, so let me just set the scene for anybody who has not watched the movie. Is the stepmother and the brothers, her sons, are in, I guess, their little lounge, and they're having after dinner cocktails, and Fella in his little servant's tuxedo comes in and with the drinks for them, and he's, jumbling the whole thing because he's supposed to be, goofy. And it's a whole series, and he ends up telling them, hey, there was a man in the pool, and they're like, what? And he tells them about fairy godfather, but he doesn't say it like that because he doesn't know yet that that's actually his fairy godfather. And they think he's just dreaming of things, and they come to the conclusion that he's dreaming about his father, and that his father left him a bunch of money, and that he's eventually going to figure out where the money is. And so it's the whole scene is very convoluted, how they jump to that point from
Hmm.
whatever. But there's a, when Fella decides to finally leave the room, he goes to open the door and it's stuck. And before he can turn around and say, stepmother, the door's stuck, she's there because she already knows that he's dumb. And she opens the door and he glides out of, he's like, oh, thank you. And that's the one and only time I laughed, because of the way he went through the door and like did this little spin. That's the only time I laughed, because I actually thought that was funny. And that was it. Because it was one time, wham bam done, and he was out. And then that was it. After that, I never laughed again.
Okay, that wasn't the thing that made me laugh.
Okay.
Mine's much later in the movie.
Okay. That was it though.
Yeah. That scene, like everything about that was like this is the setup for the plot of the movie, which is another thing that I was not expecting. And I thought the way they were talking about it in this scene, I thought it was just them making fun of him for being stupid. They're talking about him dreaming about his father, telling them he's rich. And like it seems like they're making fun of him for this. And he's insisting that it's true, but he always wakes up too soon. And I didn't get that. Like they don't explain it very well.
No.
You don't understand till later that he is dreaming about his father and his father is giving him instructions as to where to find his money. And I was that was one of the scenes where I was like, did I miss something when because they had the whole later on
Yeah.
they're like going through all this like trying to get him to go to sleep so he'll dream about his, like I felt like I missed some sort of explanation and then when I watched it the second time I was like, so this was the explanation? This does not clear anything up at
No.
all.
Because I'm with you. I was like, what? Like, I don't remember him dreaming. Like,
No, they didn't set that up at all in a way that made sense for the movie. They just mentioned it offhandedly in a way that makes it seem like they're making fun of him for it.
yes. So then we in the audience are like, okay, so I guess this is a point that's going to come up later, and it does. Like you said, it ends up being the plot point. But in between that and them actually getting to the brothers trying to actually find out where the money is just long drawn out sketches of Jerry Lewis doing ridiculous
Uh-huh.
mundane things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the whole after this he goes and gets dinner ready while they're talking about him dreaming or whatever.
Yes.
There's a whole weird long dance like he's sitting dancing and smoking and then like it
Oh,
takes forever.
to Count Basie. Yes.
He's like
Yes.
miming playing the instruments as if he can hear the soundtrack to the movie. It's like what is the point of this scene? I was so bored.
I fast forwarded it, but then I thought, oh my gosh, I bet this was a pain to edit because you're right. There's no sound when they're filming it. And then they're going to have to match up the music to his movements, and they're slightly off in places. And I'm like, what a nightmare. What a nightmare to have to match these two things up with his movements and fake instruments with the actual side, yeah, I fast forwarded through that one. I fast forwarded through that one and him walking down the hallway at just various points where it was just too long.
Yeah. Uh, it's bizarre. That's
Yeah,
all I
well,
can say about stuff like that. It's just bizarre choices.
so when they're down there, when he's down there cooking that dinner, the stepmother and the sons are upstairs plotting. And is that where we find out that the princess is coming, or is that later?
Yes, like all of they as for as much as they draw out a bunch of stuff, some of the exposition is just glided over so fast that
Right,
I feel like I missed it. Like I guess they explain things, but it also feels like I missed it because they this is where they talk about first his dream, and then she says something about if his dreams are true, if he discovers that his dreams are true, they'll all be poor. And I'm like, what? Like at the beginning, you have the voiceover of the father reading his will, and like he leaves everything to his wife. So
right,
how does this dream override the will? I don't understand.
right. And then later we find out that they are almost broke. So it's not really, like you said, nothing is really explained. So when they're plotting in there and talking about the dream and how if he finds out, then the rest of them will be poor, which again doesn't make sense because they have the house and supposedly money. We don't know
Uh-huh.
yet that they're broke. And then they kind of reveal that a princess is coming and she is staying with them and she's looking to get married. So of course they're thinking the oldest son for, you
Uh-huh.
know, the princess. And then the other brother's like, look, we all know that he's going to screw it up. So why don't we be nice to fella? Because then maybe once he finds his money,
Yeah.
and then then he'll share it with us, and then that becomes the whole plan. Is we'll be nice to him.
But in the most bizarre and uncomfortable, cringy way
Yes,
possible.
yes,
He
because
comes
they're
back to call
just
them to dinner and they just smile at him.
like they're gonna eat him. Like,
Forever. Like it felt like it took an hour. They were just staring at each other, smiling, and I'm like, "What is this movie? I hate this so much."
uh, and of course, Jerry Lewis is like reacting because he's like a little off put by it, and that would have been fine if they would have just cut it there. But they let him react to it for about 30 seconds,
Yes,
which doesn't seem like that's that long, but is terribly long.
it felt like an
And
hour. It
back and
felt like
forth
an hour.
between
I
the two of
hated
them,
it.
just And are they actually ever nice to him? No, they're
They
not.
compliment his prime rib at dinner. And
And
I'm like, is that
he
what you call being nice? And he loves this compliment, like he's starved for attention, like he's an abused pet, and someone gave him a treat, and now he's like kissing her hand, and it's like I hate this.
oh, it was just awful. And there, it's only on the off chance that he will like go through his entire dream and find out where this money is and get it, and then maybe share it with them if they're nice. This just seems like an awful plan in
Yes,
comparison to everything else they could do.
an
Just
awful
seems
plan that makes no sense.
right.
Like if the father had all the money, why did he hide it? Why did he not mention it in the will? Why I don't understand this.
No,
I,
like
I tried to rationalize the plot to make it make sense. I can't. I do not understand what they were thinking when they wrote this movie.
no, because it's like, does the dad know that he'll be able to communicate with Fella in the afterlife to let him know where this money is? Like, how did he come up with that?
Yeah,
Instead of just writing down, my wife gets the house and whatever, and then this set of money is laid out for my son. No, they don't even explain any of that. Nothing was explained. We were just supposed to know, I guess. I don't know. It was bizarre.
I don't know what we were supposed to know. Even watching this twice, I'm still confused. I thought watching it a second time would have helped. It did not at all.
No. And you're right. You don't miss anything. They just, it seems that they elongate the scenes that have no bearing on the plot whatsoever. And then all the
Yes.
things that matter that actually would drive the plot and make you interested, they're just like, oh, yeah, the princess is coming. What princess? Who? When? Why
Yeah.
is she coming to your house? How do you know her? Like, what?
Well, that was explained later, and that made me even more confused because they have that whole scene. Like I'm skipping ahead, but whatever, it doesn't matter. They have the whole scene where she's arriving, and there's like a news reporter outside the house talking,
On
and
the
he's like,
roof.
yeah, he's explaining like apparently they're related. Like two generations back, the stepmother's family was royalty in whatever country was next to. I don't really get it, but I'm like, if they're related, why is she trying to get her son married off to her?
Who knows? I, that's the thing is though, is that they glaze over that at the beginning, and then we're just supposed to roll with it. And for you to be like, oh, I shouldn't, like, oh, I'm skipping ahead, it doesn't matter because you miss nothing.
No,
Nothing really happens between. There's I guess the only maybe important part is the brothers try and go into Fella's room while he's dreaming and try and follow him sleepwalking to find the money, and that doesn't work. And then
and they
there's
end up falling out a
another,
window.
yes, and it's just dumb because nothing happens with that scene, nothing
Uh-huh.
other than them trying to just follow him around. And then the other, I guess, more larger important scene is meeting the fairy godfather again.
Yes. I will say, before we get to that, I have one thing that I liked about all of the drawn out things in between following him to watch him sleep and them plotting. At the dinner scene, the way they shot that at the beginning, I liked it. Like you have the scene of him eating his soup and crackers alone, and then the camera pulls back, going down the table. And like you think it's going to be a long table, but the table keeps going
Yeah.
and it keeps going and it keeps going. And I love the way they shot that. I wish the
Mm-hmm.
whole movie could have been like, not that I want it to be that long, but just it
Right.
felt like it had good artistic intention. And I loved that.
Yes. That was worth the long time.
Yes. And then it was not worth the long time of them creepily calling him Fella across the room and him having to run down, get the orders, go back, change his jacket for some reason, and then go back and do the thing they said, then go back and change his jacket back and then start eating soup and then get Fella, call back, go do another thing, change his jacket again. It took forever and I hated
Yeah.
everything else about that scene, but I liked the opening where they pulled the camera back and revealed the extremely too long table. It was very creative at the beginning, and then it went
Yes.
downhill.
And I did notice that his place setting had a ginormous plastic placemat under all of his plates and
That's true, it
dishes.
did.
Like everyone else got their like fancy like goblets, wine glasses, all that, and he had like a little glass of milk and a little thing and a ginormous plastic placemat. And all of his chairs, whenever he sat in a chair, was covered in plastic. Like he wasn't allowed to actually touch any of the furniture or do any. It was
I mean,
terrible.
I, not that I'm trying to make excuses for the awful step family, but he did dump his food everywhere. He dumped salt
Yes.
everywhere. He was a walking catastrophe.
Yes.
Somehow he managed to make a perfect, beautiful, entire prime rib meal for his family with no mistakes. But
Right.
then when it's him alone, he's he's a mess.
Yeah.
So like nothing about his character makes any sense.
No.
He is whatever the scene needs him to be. He is perfectly normal and stable when he needs to be perfectly normal and stable, and then he's bonkers whenever the scene needs him to be bonkers.
Yes. But they don't align.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It is funny though, when he was during different things that he was doing, like I was thinking to myself, this feels like Looney Tunes. Like if somebody stretched out a Looney Tunes cartoon, like because some of the gags, the way he talked, it felt like if you shortened this up, this would be actually funny. This could be a Looney Tunes short.
Yes.
And I looked up the writer. Frank Tashlin was a writer and animator for Looney Tunes.
Yeah. That does
So
not surprise me
he
at all.
he apparently they hired him for that, and then he just stretched out everything he already knew how to do, and it did not work as an hour and a half long movie.
No, I don't. I mean, I'd be interested to after this to look up and see what the actual reception of it was. If it was generally thought of as successful, or if people were like, "eh," because this was boring.
Yeah, normally it says on the wiki page like what reactions to it were. There isn't anything like that. On IMDb, it had like a five something rating.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I like that's probably nowadays people are giving it that rating.
Yeah,
So I don't know what the reviewers at the time thought.
right.
I
That'd be
I
interesting.
don't know if they would like this or not. The fact that I had never heard of this until I started looking up Cinderella stuff makes me think that it was not popular. Because like if a movie is popular enough, it will be re-released multiple times. It'll be put on TV. Like it won't be
Right.
forgotten. This was basically forgotten, so I can't help but think that not many people really liked this.
I'm I agree because I remember when you first brought it up, what was it like last year? And I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. I was like, yes, I want to because I was like, yeah, it's got to be funny. It's
Hmm.
Jerry Lewis, and I watched it as a kid. Yeah, no, it wasn't funny.
No, I really thought it was like because the first thing I'd heard about it was Ed Wynn as the fairy godfather, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm in. That sounds amazing.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
not.
No, not at all. Well, it gets worse if that makes you feel any better.
Uh, yeah, like you said, they have that whole scene where they're watching him sleep and trying to follow him because he's sleepwalking, and also revealing through his dialogue that his father is in hell for some reason. Like, this is a choice.
Again, bizarre. Yes.
So, like they had this whole ridiculous plan to exhaust him by getting him to play polo and golf, and then he'll be so exhausted that he'll fall asleep and finally finish the dream and reveal where his father hid the money. And then that doesn't happen. Okay, what was the point of this then?
Right.
And also, the way he talked to his father through the dream, I also hated that because he's like not that he talks intelligently for most of the movie, but he like turns into a babbling idiot, like calling him father, papa, daddy, and he's looking for his millions of rich dollars. And I'm like, who wrote this? Go take a writing class. This isn't
Yeah.
funny at all. Like who somebody must have thought this was funny, but I don't. I hate this. I can't imagine anyone listening to this and laughing. I'm sure somebody did somewhere, but not me.
Or they ran out of time and they're like, fine, just go with it. Whatever. And people will laugh. And
I,
no,
I,
no one did.
I don't know. Like I'd heard I one of the things I read said the movie was delayed, but maybe they'd already shot it and then it was delayed.
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, after this is when the princess arrives and you've got the reporter and then revealing that I guess they're related. And I'm like, what? You're just gonna gloss over that they're trying to marry some distant cousin? Okay, I hope it's distant enough that whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's a fairy tale, but I overthink a lot of things, and I that stood out to me.
Well, what stood out to me was that she comes out and she's beautiful. She's a beautiful young woman and she looks to be in her early 20s and they're gonna marry her off to the 56-year-old that still lives in the same room with his
With his
brother
mommy dearest and brother.
in a king size. I'm like, is she just gonna move in there and y'all all three share a room? It's weird.
I
Yeah, because
don't
I'm
know
like
what
you, I overthink it. And I'm like, what's gonna happen here?
none of their plans made any sense. I don't know what
No.
she like. Is the for a little bit she seems to like him. I'm like, why? Why? What do you see in this guy?
All
I
he
don't.
does is pull her off to weird corners of the house or the ball and just stare at her for like 30 seconds and then sort of lean in for a kiss and then that's it and then
And then
something
the mom
happens.
falls out the window and they get distracted.
Yes, or at the ball like I know. Yes, because then Jerry Lewis pops up from the bushes, which
Uh-huh.
is dumb, but it's just they didn't actually talk to each other, which this to me, like when it comes to Cinderella retellings, we usually get very little of the stepsisters beyond their, superficial, like evil ways, right?
Hmm.
Ever After does a good job of going in and letting them be like characters with actual like thoughts and stuff, where we see
Hmm.
more of the family dynamic. And in this situation, we see more of the family dynamic between the mother and the sons and their plots and their little conversations, their side conversations, because the brothers at one point are like, hey, if he comes across the money, we don't have to tell the old lady, hello,
Hmm.
their mother, and we'll just keep it for ourselves. Yeah, Um, but then when it comes to actually making the story of the princess and one of the brothers falling in love, they say no words. There's no dialogue between any
Hmm.
of them. There's nothing beyond just a dance and pulling her out into the courtyard and just staring at her
I mean,
for a long
really,
period of
there isn't
time.
with her and Fella either.
No.
Like, she falls in love with him immediately
Yes.
for no reason. I'm
No.
like, what on earth do you see in this guy?
Well, because she had a red sash on and he had a red jacket and they matched. And so obviously they were supposed to be in love. That's really what it came down to because that whole scene was ridiculous.
We're getting slightly ahead because we
Yeah,
still have to
sorry.
talk about the fairy godfather.
I'm trying to actively put that out of my mind because I was so angry. But yes,
What I thought was going to be the best part of the movie turned out to be the worst part of the movie
the
because I
worst.
love Edwin and all the other stuff I've seen him in. I love him as the Mad Hatter. I love him as the weird old guy in That Darn Cat. He's the great as Uncle Albert in Mary Poppins.
Yes.
Like I love Edwin. I hate this character.
Hate him.
He is such a wasted opportunity. He is the perfect man to be a goofy, lovable fairy godfather. And instead they turn him into some weird old misogynist. And it's like, what is the like as I was watching the movie for the second time, I was thinking to myself, this feels like someone's wish fulfillment. Like they wrote themselves into this movie. They had a terrible wife and they are mad at all women and they wanted to write a movie where this guy gets the perfect woman so they can feel like they got the perfect woman. Like everything about this character feels like somebody's writing dialogue that they wish someone would say to them.
1000% agree. 1000% agree. And I'm going to tell you that there was a moment at the beginning, because at the beginning of this little scene where the fairy godfather shows up, they've locked Fella away because they don't want the princess to know he's there. They've fake hired staff to make it look like the house is staffed instead of
Uh-huh.
Cinderfella doing all of the work. So they've locked him away, right? And he turns around at one point, Fella turns around and the fairy godfather's sitting there. He's like, oh, you. And it eventually way too long into the scene. He's like, wait a minute, how did you get in here? Anyways, so he has to convince him that he's the fairy godfather, right? And he goes through and he tells him all these things. And eventually he's like, you've been chosen. You've been chosen by the higher ups of all these organizations that I don't care to remember what they are.
I wrote them all down
Oh my gosh,
because
did you do you what
I
are they?
rewound it 3 times so that I could make sure to get them all correct because it's like this is so bizarre. Well, first, before that, he says that he tries to explain who he is. Like, he tries to explain that he's the fairy godfather, and Fella doesn't believe him. So he tells them that he's the one who actually helped Cinderella. Not, there was no fairy godmother, it was him. And he says that in the fairy tale, it's a fairy godmother because he said all the women reporters in Cinderella's time said it was a fairy godmother because, and he's like, women are strange. They're like the Russians. They want credit for everything.
Yes,
And at
because
first, I'm giving the movie the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, is this supposed to be commentary on the fact that there's so many times in history men steal women's credit for things? Like, the reason I thought of that because I just watched a video about Cabbage Patch Dolls of all things. I have no interest in Cabbage Patch Dolls, but there was something about the title that made me curious. And apparently, Cabbage Patch Dolls were quote unquote invented by this guy named Xavier Roberts, but it was actually him finding this woman, Martha Thomas Nelson, at a craft fair selling art dolls. Like she had made these dolls, and he starts buying them and selling them, and she doesn't want to mass market them. So he just stole her design and
yeah,
invented Cabbage Patch Dolls out of them. So
and
that's
put
what.
his name on their butts.
Yes, which is bizarre. Like everything about this guy in this video, like he had like a photo shoot of him in a bathtub with these dolls, and I'm like, what is
Mm-hmm.
wrong with this man?
Mm-hmm.
So like I had just watched this a couple days before I watched this movie, and I'm like, okay, so like I'm really giving this movie the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, is this a commentary on the fact that women are they had a lot of times in history they've had their work stolen by men, like Watson and Crick, who they claimed the discovery of DNA, and it was actually Rosalind Franklin who died, and then they stole her work.
Right.
Anyway, I thought that maybe that's what they're doing with this scene. I was wrong. Nope. They
No,
just hate women.
I'm really glad you brought this up because I had the same thought. I literally was sitting there and I laughed because when he said that, I was like, oh, yeah, because historically women are the ones that, are out there paving. Yeah, okay. Meaning, like, you're right that this was a flip. This was a satire on the fact that men always take the credit for women. And so they're saying this as a tongue in cheek thing. And I was like, okay, this is, great. And as it moves on, you know, first of all, before I get into that, let me just say before when he's trying to convince Fella that he's the fairy godfather, he brings in Cinderella.
Yeah, he like
He
pulls
like
her out of the past.
wands her in with his little weird rubber glitter wand, which was awful to look at. And then of course Cinderella pops up in the clothes, like the original, like
The rags.
yes, the rags, thank you. And she like flings herself at him as like if I
Yeah.
wasn't
She
married.
she
And I'm
says,
like,
if I weren't a married woman, and then she lets out like
what?
this unholy growl, and I'm like, what is this movie?
I was beside myself. Like, what the oh, absolute, this is what I was like, this is bizarre.
Uh-huh.
And then he's like, this isn't her because she doesn't have glass slippers on. So of course Fairy Godfather's like, well, here, hold on. And he puts her in the princess wear. Again, weirdo, because then she just says, you have a special mission. I don't know, something, whatever. It doesn't matter because she poofs and goes away. And then they start to discuss that he's been chosen, that Fella has been chosen by all these organizations to set the record straight. And this is where I was like, you had me at the beginning because I thought that this again was satire. This was going to be
Mm-hmm.
like historically women are put down and their only avenue is marriage, and that here comes the commentary, which I thought this is actually really forward thinking
It could
for
have been so smart, and I thought
a
it was.
60s movie. It's
I
like I
very
was like
briefly thought it was.
I was like, oh my gosh, they're really going there because Fairy Godfather is like, women were sold a lie. They were sold that if they wait for Prince Charming, he'll come and they'll get married and they'll live happily ever after. And they were sold a lie because there's only one Prince Charming and he married Cinderella, so there wasn't any more left. And so they ended up having to settle. And I'm like, this is wow, this is really forward feminist thinking for the 60s, but I should have waited because in the next breath he was like, and in turn they made their husbands miserable by reminding them how much they settled. And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. And it gets worse because then he's like, And so now the husbands have to revolt and let the wives know that, they're being made to be miserable. And I'm like, oh, so instead of stepping up and being
Uh-huh.
better men, they're like, no,
We
the
have to
wives
make
are
each
making
other
us
equally
miserable.
as miserable.
Because later he even goes further, and I really wrote down, and I don't know if I should say it on this podcast, but I really wrote down in all caps, holy shit, because he says, when you, Cinderfella, if you marry the princess, you're just an average dude. Like, you're not special, and she's a princess. And when you marry her, all these average dudes will be like, see, I'm an average guy just like him, and I can marry a princess. And they'll look at their wives if they have makeup on
Yeah.
and can look at them and put them in their place and let them know that they didn't have to settle for them. They could have gotten a princess instead of you. And I was just like, oh, I was like, this went entirely.
It went in the opposite direction of where I thought it was going.
And then I was just mad. I was like, I'm hate watching the rest of this.
Like, okay, I guess I should say before we keep going, like I said, I wrote down all of the names of the
Yes.
places. So this plan was concocted by the chairman of the board of directors of all fairy godfathers and the Society of the Prevention of Distorting the Truth in Fairy Tales and the Committee for the Preservation of Sanity to Married Men.
Yep.
This, like, I'm laughing at how ridiculous this is. I was not laughing watching the movie. I was just sitting there staring, slack-jawed, like, what am I watching?
Same. Because like I said, they had me at the beginning. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really forward thinking for the 60s. And I was like, maybe this is why I didn't really catch on, because people are like, yeah, no, we're not going to mess with that. No, it's terrible. And they say terrible things. And I'm like, so y'all hate women. And I think you're right. This was somebody's fever dream of like, this is what they've always wanted to say to whoever rejected them.
Uh-huh.
Mm, yeah, it was hate watch after that.
Yeah. And like the ultimate goal of this plan is that this will lead to reconciliation between men and women all around the world because they will learn to be happy as they are. And I'm like, how does that make any sense? Because if if you take his story at face value, for centuries after Cinderella happened, women have been making their husbands miserable by saying, "Why can't you be more like Prince Charming?" So why now, if this story happens, the men can now turn this back around on their wives and say, well, why can't you be more like Princess Charmaine? Which apparently is spelled just like Prince Charming, but they pronounce it like Prince Charmaine because
Oh
I
my
looked up the
gosh.
spelling and it was just,
Oh no.
it looks like Princess Charming and it's Princess Charmaine. But anyways, if that's the goal, is so that the men can now turn around and say, well, you're not like Princess Charmaine. Like, how does that lead to reconciliation? You're just causing a fight.
Right.
This
Right.
isn't going to lead to reconciliation.
And the whole time there's fella being like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, because average people need to be with average people. And I can be that. And I'm like, oh Lord, I'm out. After everything, I don't care. I don't care who gets with it. I don't care. Yeah.
Uh, it's so stupid. It's just so
Yes.
stupid.
Yes.
It's hilariously stupid. It's so awful that I can't help but laugh because what else can you do with this level of idiocy?
Go downhill even more.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't like I know you could say times were different back then, but I don't understand how anyone could listen to this and think that this makes sense. Like even if they thought it was funny, I don't understand how they could listen to the logic and think it makes sense for this movie.
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't. It's
Yes, there
just dumb.
yes, there are plenty of people out there that still think that way in terms of, gender roles and the dynamic between, husbands and wives. And well, that's a whole nother thing, that a separate podcast, right? But in the end, the plot itself doesn't make sense. Like,
No.
you take out the whole terribleness and misogynistic part of it. Just looking at the story, none of it makes sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And even at this point, I was thinking that I almost lost. Like I don't understand what's going on. It got even more incomprehensible towards the end.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I mean, once we get there, just okay, well, I'll wait until we get there, but because then the ball happens.
Yeah, so they go out there first. They go and spy on Rupert and the princess. There's a bunch of shenanigans as he's sneaking around, getting jealous that this is his future wife and his stepbrother is dancing with her. I'm like, you're a weirdo.
Yes.
Like, and that scene didn't even lead to anything because he ends up getting his finger stepped on and yelling at the same time as the mother is also spying on them, falls out the window and yells. So what was the point of the scene? I don't.
Just to have him make funny faces for the having his fingers stepped on. So the brother and the princess are on a patio that's like elevated, and the fairy godfather and fella are down below, like sneaking from below, like looking up at them. And so eventually they dance to the end, or they're standing there on the side, and the brother steps on his fingers as he's looking. And so we're given, like a full 60 seconds of Jerry Lewis trying to remove his fingers from under the foot.
It felt
10
like longer
seconds.
than 60 seconds.
Yeah. 10 seconds, fine. That's funny. But it just kept going and going and going. And yeah, it wasn't funny.
No, not at all.
Mm-mm.
So then he goes back inside and he's getting ready to go to the ball in his dad's oversized suit. And then his family forbids him from going, and he says he was invited and insists that he was invited, but he won't say by who. Like he means the fairy godfather. And they say he can't go. So then he goes to sing a sad song to himself about how the bad guys always win and he's giving up on the fairy godfather.
I fast forwarded through the whole thing. I couldn't take it.
The whole song was so stupid, and it
Yes.
led to nothing because he's singing about how he's going to be mean from now on. And then the fairy godfather shows up. This is the part that made me laugh because he shows up dressed as a fairy godmother because
Mm-hmm.
he says if he can't believe in a fairy godfather anymore, maybe it'll be easier to believe in a fairy godmother. Again, logic does not compute.
No.
But the thing that made me laugh, he said that he borrowed the dress from a Halloween witch he used to date.
Right? Because
That made me burst out laughing. That's the funniest part of the whole movie.
because it was the cheapest looking outfit ever. And I was like, I know Spirit Halloween didn't exist in the 60s, but I was like, this is very Spirit Halloween. And then he says it, oh yeah, I stole this from
A
Halloween
Halloween witch. I love that he specified a Halloween witch, not like an actual witch, a Halloween witch.
because it was it was a terrible outfit.
Yeah, that was the funniest part. And then it never made me laugh again.
No.
And this is where I thought I missed another scene because then we go to the ball, and I was expecting a transformation scene, like he transforms this sloppy, oversized suit into a nice red suit that he shows up at the ball in. But no, we go to the ball, and then he just shows up in a suit jacket and also slightly grayed hair as a disguise.
Which did nothing to disguise him. He literally looks exactly the same. And I'm like, this is very Clark Kent glasses Superman. Like, it's
And I
him.
think his family even still recognizes him, but one says, no, this is a much older man.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the dumb younger brother.
Whatever.
Yeah. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous because that suit was so cheap and it was made to look like a knockoff like Prince like outfit, I guess, and it matched her dress. And I get why they did it. It was just bizarre. And this is where I think I mixed up the two movies because it's reminiscent of his whole buddy love character in what was it, the professor, what
I know he
where
was in a movie called The Nutty Professor, which I've never
yes.
seen. I've never been sure if it was supposed to be a remake of The Absent-Minded Professor or not.
No, so no, it's like so, and in that scene, there's a dance scene again, if I'm remembering this correctly, where he's wearing a white, coat, like a white tux, and he's doing his whole buddy love shtick. And I think I confused the two movies, and I think that's why I was like, oh yeah, Yeah, Cinderfella, because I kept seeing that dance scene in my mind. And so when this dance scene happened, I was like, I don't remember this red jacket. What is like it didn't nothing about it was familiar. And I'm like, oh, I bet I was confusing the two movies.
Hmm.
Yeah. But I mean, in the end, it didn't matter because this one sucked. And I refuse now to watch any more because I'm like, this was terrible. They're all terrible, and I'm out. I'm not even gonna worry about it.
Yeah, I don't plan to watch any more Jerry Lewis movies. The only exception potentially would be The Nutty Professor because I need to find out if it is a remake of The Absent-Minded Professor. Because at some point I want to do a series on The Absent-Minded Professor, like the original, plus its sequel, plus the Robin Williams remake from the 90s.
Right,
And I'm
the
thinking if
flubber.
the Nutty Professor is part of that, then I'll add it in there. If it's not, I'm never watching it.
Right. I don't remember, honestly.
But yeah, anyways, this scene both feels like it takes forever, especially the part of him dancing down the stairs, but then it feels like it is cut short because the princess is like instantly smitten with him, and then it's suddenly midnight and he flees, losing his shoe.
Which we didn't really see because it looked like he went
I didn't get that he lost his shoe until she found it. Like it, they glazed over so much in this movie. They didn't even explain the midnight thing. Like I guess they just assume that we all know because we know the story of Cinderella. But like, what if somebody had never heard of Cinderella and just decided to go to the movies this night? Which I know is like, improbable, but like it could happen. They should have explained it.
right. They should have at least established a scene where as he's changing him, as he's, making the carriage, or in this case a car, and the
Yeah,
driver and his outfit and the time, and you have to be done by midnight. But no, we get nothing. And I'm wondering if they cut some of this
I
stuff.
feel like they had to have because it felt like there was a weird cut in there. Like, because that's why I thought maybe I got a bad copy, and that's why I went and found it on a different streaming service to make sure. But the same cut was in the other one. So
Right.
I I think they cut a scene and didn't explain the cut because there should have been something showing him changing into the suit. And like I like the idea that they went with, which was having him turn his bike into a car and then having the driver be one of the fish from the pond in the backyard. I think that's clever.
Yes.
And they didn't explain that until things are going badly. Like the car and the fish are changing back. Like the
Right.
guy is changing back into a fish and the car is changing back into a bike. They didn't explain it until it was happening. And I was like, I felt like I missed something because I didn't understand why this was happening.
Yes. It again, nothing that was actually important to the story was ever really
Yes.
explained. You just had to figure it out.
Yeah, all the important Cinderella stuff was cut short in favor of long, drawn out scenes of people being weird. And not good weird. I like weird movies sometimes, but this was not the good weird. This was just weird and boring and bizarre and uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, they're dancing and they have this weird, they're not really dancing, they're just kind of like doing funny dance moves around each other. And the princess is obviously enjoying herself, which, fine. And then they have a
I
slow
can give
dance.
that I can look over that, I guess, because
Yes.
this is technically a fairy tale.
Yes.
But
And I'm like,
with so much other stuff that I'm picking apart, I want to pick that apart too.
yeah, and it's like, okay, and then it evolves into an actual slow dance, but then immediately gets cut off because then he realizes it's midnight and he does his whole thing and he runs up those long stairs. And I'm like, oh, is that the one where you had the heart attack?
That's probably the part where he got the heart attack. Because when that happened, I was like, yeah, that looks painful.
Yes. And never once did because I thought maybe he'll drop something. I'm like, what is he going to leave behind? But we don't see anything. We don't see a shoe come off. We don't see him drop anything. And I'm like, but then what does it matter? Because she literally lives in, like, she's literally staying in the same house where he lives.
That's true. And when she comes at the end, she knew where to go. So she didn't, it wasn't like he was really disguised at all because she knew who he was.
Yes. And she's like standing there holding this giant sweaty man's shoe. And I'm like, and that's the part of Cinderella. It doesn't matter what version it is. It's always put me off because I'm like, that's come on now. It's a shoe, especially when it's the glass shoe. I'm like, them feet in there were sweating because that is
Uh-huh.
glass and just stinky. And you're over there being like, uh-huh. And I'm like, these are foot people that wrote this movie. like that wrote this whole fairy tale. These were feet people. But I'm like, oh, she's holding up that giant man shoe, and it's gross. And he's been dancing all night in it. Okay, whatever. That's the things that run through my mind. I'm like, okay. But yeah, there was no reason because she knew who he was. She knew they literally are in the same house together. And I'm like, well, and I remember because I was trying to finish it and I was like, God, how much is left? How much left? We have to still go through the whole thing of finding him. And I was like, oh, wait, there's like 7 minutes left. And I was like, all right, well, they're going to wrap this up very tidily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They did, but it not in a way that made it feel satisfying.
No.
And the whole resolution to the money thing is the part where it just fully lost me. I was like, this makes no sense. Because after he gets home and the fish is changed back into a fish, he throws it in the pond, and then his brother comes up talking about the money, demanding that he turn over the money or whatever. And then fella claims that he always knew where the money was, and that if they really want it, he can have it. And then he pulls a tree branch like a lever, and it shoots all the money out in a stream, and he falls to the ground unconscious for some reason. And I'm like, what? What?
Uh,
There was no setup for this.
no.
This makes no sense.
It's like the entire time. So why did he stay there? Like, why did I guess because it was his house he grew up in and
But
he didn't know
also
what
he
else.
seems to have some sort of attachment to the stepfamily because they're leaving because the money has been found. They think that this is all over, and he's like begging them not to leave. He's giving them everything. He's going to leave instead,
Yeah.
and then suddenly the stepmom is remorseful. What?
Yeah.
Why is she remorseful after all this time? She gets everything she ever wanted, and suddenly, oh no, I feel bad, kind of. And then she tells the kids not to take the money.
Yeah. They dive for it and they're like starting to shove it in all their pockets. And she's like, stop that. What? There was no reason, no motivation for her character switch. And why would he uh, why would he just
He
know and then just
I feel like they were trying to make it so that he somehow, for whatever reason, liked this family. Inexplicably liked them. Like everything they did to him was awful. He should have hated them. But I think they're trying to say like he's a good person because he still likes them. Because there was a line in one of the songs about him wanting to buy his stepmother a jacket with like bejeweled jacket or something. I don't remember the exact line. But like he wants to buy them things. Like he still likes this family for some bizarre reason.
yes,
I don't know why they wrote it this way. I don't know why they wrote the entire movie the way they wrote it.
right.
Like I think that's what they were going for. It just made no sense.
No. And then we get the princess scene.
Yeah, she arrives with the shoe and he says that they can never be together because she's a person and he's a people. And then she's
Every
like
time
trying
you say it, it's just dumb.
it's so stupid, but that's what he said.
I know.
And then she's like trying to explain that underneath all the fancy clothes, she's a people too. And then
She's
she's
just
like, she gets
ripping her.
hysterics. She's like into hysterics, like demanding that she listen. She loves him. And he's like driving away on his bike. It's so dumb. The only thing about this scene that I kind of liked was that as he's driving away, she breaks off the heels of her high heeled shoes so that she can chase him on his bike. I did kind of like the way they shot that, but after that, it was like this is stupid.
Yeah.
That
She's like ripping off parts of her dress because there's like fur and stuff on her dress. And I'm like, what? How is she just going to take off all of her clothes? I know she's not because it's the 60s, but I'm just like, what is happening? And she's like, but I love you. And he's like, eh. And he's trying to ride off. And she's like yelling. I'm like, how y'all had barely a dance together?
yeah,
I
it
know it's a
doesn't make
fairy
any
tale.
sense. And
I
yes,
know.
it's a fairy tale, and I tried to give the movie grace, but they fully lost me a long time ago, and I'm not giving it any more grace. I don't care that this is supposed to be a fairy tale. This made no sense.
And this is why Frozen is amazing when, they're like, you can't marry somebody you just met tonight. Y'all don't love each other. This is not possible.
The whole end of this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because like he fully leaves and she's like singing sadly to herself and then he's like there for some reason and then they start dancing and then it transitions back into the place where the ball was held and then balloons start falling and the orchestra starts playing and then that's the end. What? Okay.
Truly, it makes no sense.
No.
And at this point, I'm usually like, all right, that was dumb, but it was at least entertaining. This, as soon as it was over, I was like, thank God it's over.
Yeah.
And I never have to watch this again. And I was just like still mad about all the messaging in the movie. And I was like, okay, well, I can't wait to talk about this.
Yeah, I felt the same way. And I watched it again in the hopes that it would make more sense. Like I really felt after I watched it the first time, I really felt like I missed some scenes. I was
Yeah,
like, okay, it'll make so much more sense when I watch it, like fully give it my attention. I'm not going to be doing anything else while I'm watching the movie. I'll be making my notes. It did not help.
no, no.
Everything I thought I was missing was actually missing.
Yeah. It it could, I would be interested in a modern version of it because
I thought that too.
I think in the right hands, somebody could really make a fun version of this.
The idea for this movie is great. I don't like the whole dream thing. Like there's a secret wealth stash somewhere. Like cut
Right.
that. Just make it a gender swap Cinderella. I like
Yeah.
this idea. Like and give me a fun fairy godfather who's not a weird woman hating weirdo. like like there's an idea here that I really like. They
Yes.
just botched every opportunity they had with this movie. Like I was really looking forward to this. I thought this was going to be a great hidden gem that was going to be on par with some of my favorite old weird 60s Disney comedies. This was forgotten for a reason. This was
Yeah.
terrible.
It really was. And now I'm like, I need to probably, and I'm going to go ahead and say, I know I'm confusing the two. The Nutty Professor is Jerry Lee Lewis, and that's him concocting a potion. Not Jerry Lee Lewis. Now I'm even making it worse. I'm farther away. Jerry Lewis, not Jerry Lee Lewis, Jerry Lewis making a potion to make him suave, like to make him, irresistible to women because he's just this like nerdy scientist. The absent-minded professor is Flubber.
Yeah.
So they're two different things. I just keep confusing the two, and I apologize. But I know part of me is like, I should go watch the Nutty Professor and see how much I thought that Cinderfella was the Nutty Professor, and thinking this whole time that that's what it was, and it's not. And then the other part of me is like, no, I don't ever need to watch another Jerry Lee. I mean, there I go again, Jerry Lewis movie again. It's just too much.
I
It's too
mean,
much
if
Flubber.
you like not right away, but if you wanted to do a podcast on it sometime in the future, I could see that maybe being fun because like with a movie like this, the podcast makes it worth it. Like I like having the
Yeah.
conversation afterwards.
Yes.
So maybe if it is awful, maybe that would be a redeeming thing to do a
Okay.
podcast on it.
Maybe after some time and some
Yeah,
space,
not
I'll
right
watch
away.
it. And then if it's something I think is worth it, I'll message you and I'm like, hey, yeah, watch it. We need to talk about it.
Sure.
Oh, but not no, I'm out on Jerry Lewis for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was if he is better than this was a bad introduction to him
I'm
because
telling
I
you.
was not impressed.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I get now why we were Don Knotts people. I'm like, okay.
I loved the Don Knotts movies when I was a kid too. I didn't
Yes.
see them all, but I loved like he I haven't seen all of the Andy Griffith Show, but he I loved him in that.
Yeah.
Even like there's a movie that I need to rewatch that I remember liking, but then I was start watching a video about it and I was like, this looks bizarre. It was called
The Incredible Mr.
Incredible Mr.
Limpet.
Limpet. Yes.
Yes. The
I
fish
remember
movie.
liking that as a kid. That was another one that I think it was, we had it taped, whether it was something
Yep.
that my uncle had taped or whether we taped it. I remember having it on tape and watching it multiple times as a kid.
Yes.
Then
I love that one.
I was
And
watching
No
a
Time
video
for
about it
Sergeants. Yeah.
and like they were explaining the plot and I was like, this, I don't remember this.
Yeah. No, and it's like parts of it are animated because yeah, he's a fish. And
That's the parts that I remember.
yeah. Yeah. So those are the one, and I'm like, I get it now. We enjoyed those more than the
Like
because I
Don Knotts is a total goofball too, but maybe it's a different way. Like maybe his goofiness is different to this because this didn't feel like a charming, lovable goofiness. This was just like annoying. Like
yeah.
I did not enjoy this. And anytime when somebody else was trying to be goofy, it came off as like borderline creepy, uncomfortable. Like the family trying to be nice by smiling. That was just ugh.
Yeah.
That was awful.
That was so creepy. And it was entirely too long.
Yes.
Well, I'm a huge Don Knotts fan because of those, when I was a kid, of course, the Andy Griffith Show, and then of course the movies, but then, Three's Company. Like, so
Oh
for
yeah,
me,
I watched some of that. I didn't watch that all the time, but I watched some of
right.
that when I was a kid too.
Yeah, because for me it was like you came home and it was, I think it was Laverne and Shirley at 2:30, and then it was like A Different Strokes at 3, and then at 3:30 was Three's Company. And I would just watch all of those as soon as I got home. And then as an adult, I started revisiting Three's Company. I was like, what were my parents thinking? Let me watch this show. It's just wild. But it's ingrained in me, and I'm like, oh, I love it so much. But yeah, so we, like I said, we were Don Knotts people. And so it's interesting. I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna ask him after we get done here. I'm gonna ask my dad, actually. I'm gonna be like, Dad, because he was the one that usually was like, we're gonna watch this tonight. And when you're a kid, you're like, sure, because what else are you gonna do? There's one TV in the house and
Hmm.
13 channels because we didn't have cable then. I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll watch that. I'm gonna ask him, be like, were you not a Jerry Lewis fan? Because I need to know. And I want to see what he says. Because if he's like, no, he was terrible, I'm like, thank you. Let me talk about Cinderfella with you.
I was just gonna say, ask him, did you like Cinderfella when we were kids? And then you'll know more about your dad.
Exactly. It'll be like, because I need to know where you stand on this. So that's what I'm gonna text him after we're done. I'm gonna be like, I have questions.
Yeah, this was bizarre. A huge disappointment because I literally have been looking forward to this movie for years.
Oh,
Like
sorry.
we
We've been
talked.
talking about this forever.
I know. Well, the first time we mentioned, I think, was back when we did the Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella movies, because I think that's when I first found it.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it. I think you mentioned that you had seen it when you were a kid, and then we have recorded other things since then, and we keep talking about it. And then this one keeps getting put off. And so I'm like, not that it's one that I was like, I'm so looking forward to this movie, but like it's been in the back of my head for like a couple of years
Yeah.
now. I'm like, I'm looking forward to this because I'm excited to see Ed win because I love that guy. And
Right.
then this turned out to be so awful. It's like I thought this was going to be great, and it was very not.
Yes. They all can't be winners. And
No.
this definitely wasn't. But I was like, I was just kidding earlier when I said, does Jonathan secretly hate me? I was like, this is going to be a fun one to talk about because
Yeah.
I just, there was no part of me that thought that you were going to come on and be like, I loved it. What'd you think? I was like, no, we're going to have fun.
I knew, like, I was never planning on being nice to it at all, but I was going to see, like, gauge how much you actually liked it. I was going to try and be a little more gentle if you
Yeah.
really
Like
had
pull your
nostalgia
punches.
for this. But I'm like, okay, you hated it too. Okay, well
Yeah.
then, it really is that bad.
Yeah, I actually put on my Instagram stories right before we recorded. Literally, I was like, I'm about to get on with my friend Jonathan and discuss the worst movie ever made. And I won't reveal the title now, but when it gets posted, I sure will share. I was like, yeah. So that's what I'm dubbing it, is the worst movie ever made. I know there's worse, but this is how I feel right now.
Uh, I feel like I don't, maybe I should, but I don't title like the YouTube versions of the podcast with anything other than the title of the movie we're
Right.
talking about. But for this one, I almost feel like just making the title, oh no.
That's probably a good one. Like Cinderfella colon, we weren't prepared. We weren't ready for this.
No, I really wasn't. I thought this was going to be great. It was not at all.
And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, usually in these movies, well, again, like we've already said, they're entertaining outside of their terribleness, but there's always at least one redeeming quality. Like there's usually like one standout, performance or like
Hmm.
something. And in this, it literally,
There
like you said earlier, it
wasn't.
was just the sets.
The sets and the one laugh about the Halloween witch dress. That actually made me laugh. That was a genuine, this is hilarious laugh.
Yeah.
And one very funny joke and a really great set is not enough to make me
No.
forgive all of the other faults of this movie.
No, no. So I can't wait till this comes out because I'm gonna be like, this is what I was talking about. This is the worst movie ever made.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to actually ask other people because this is now going to be one of my like gauging questions. Like, where do you fall on this? I need to know. Have you seen
If
Cinderfella?
people had seen it, like I feel like it's if this were a more popular movie, like
Right,
everyone has seen it, that would be a great question to gauge your compatibility with someone. Like, what do you feel about Cinderfella? But the fact
right.
that it's so obscure makes it seem like, well, it's probably not that
I
great of a
know.
gauge. But if on the very off chance they have seen it, then sure, it's a great way to gauge.
Well, that's going to be my leading question. Have you ever seen or heard of Cinderfella? If they're like, yes, I'm like, okay, now here where we get to the next part.
What do you
Uh,
think of the
yeah.
fairy godfather?
Like that will tell me a lot about you and where the potential of this friendship goes. So
uh, yeah.
there's my silver lining. It wasn't an actual character performance. It's the fact that now I can use it to weed out potential
Yes.
friends.
And my silver lining is this podcast. Like
Oh yeah.
for every terrible movie that have to watch, if I weren't making a podcast, it would not be worth it. I'm glad I watched it because of this podcast. It is a
Yes.
stuff like this makes for a more fun conversation than just gushing about how much you love something.
Yes. Well, and I enjoy it. And I'm always grateful that you asked me to be part of it. So thank you. Even though this movie was terrible, it was fun to talk about. So
Yes.
I always appreciate it when you invite me on. So thank you.
Yes. Well, maybe next time we'll talk about something better, but I'm not sure because we have other movies that we've talked about doing that I don't know if they'll be better than this or not.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
they'll be better in as much as A Snow White Christmas is better than this. Like, not
Yes.
technically better, but more entertaining and more rewatchable.
Yes. Yes. Because I am already, it's already on my Christmas list for this year. Yes.
Okay, well, I think we have said more than enough about
Yeah.
Cinderfella.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be back to talk about something else in the future, but until
Yes.
then, would you like to let people know where they can find you on the internet?
Absolutely. Thank you. You can find me on Instagram at my bookish agenda and my website, mybookishagenda.com.
Okay, well, we'll see you next time,
Okay.
hopefully for something slightly better than this one.
Yes, absolutely. As always, it's a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My Linktree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.